Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We got no viewers yet, so we'll give people a couple. Yeah. So unfortunately, we've been sitting here for the last half an hour trying to figure out how to share Fred's screen, but it hasn't worked. So we are not sharing Fred's screen. We can see Fred, but we can't see his PowerPoint. So yeah. So anyway, welcome everybody. If you can share this, do me a favor and click share the view, give us some likes. That way more people will see it. Then when more people see it, well, we help more people out. So, Fred, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Fred Taylor. I'm a co-owner of Sustainable Organic Solutions. We are we're going to call it an organic fertilizer or soil amendment company. We provide a variety of different soil amendments, as well as we make our own plant-based compost. And we're based in Winnipeg.
Nice, nice. How long you been doing this for?
Quite a while. We have a lawn care company that's been going for about 20 some years, and about 15 years ago, my son was in green space management and he was all into organics, so he got us off the par 3s and the glyphosates and started getting us into a more natural way of treating the lands and giving us the opportunity to educate people on how you can have reduced amounts of weeds, better gardens, better flowers, better veggies, and only using one or two natural products. It was healthier for me. So he converted us over to that probably 7 to 10 years ago. And since then, we, as you, Keith, had been collecting all of our grass clippings and leaves, and like, what are we going to do with this stuff? I got tired of taking it to the dump and paying dumping fees back in those days. So we started composting them on site, and from that, it's just kind of grown. We've learned from our mistakes. We've learned from our successes on how to go about creating a very good, successful plant-based compost. We don't use any kind of added animal-based products to it whatsoever. So it's just the trees, the leaves, grasses, vegetable, garden leftovers, that sort of thing.
Nice. So you mentioned not adding any animal compost, so like manure or whatever. Is there a reason for that?
Well, number one, I'm not vegan. I eat meat. I like meat. But we just found it easier. We had a number of, we didn't have any animal byproducts to compost. We had all this plant material. So we started off with that. And then we found there was a niche market amongst those that don't believe in eating meat or consuming any kind of meat products whatsoever, whether they be vegetarian or vegan. So we decided to stay with just that and going from there.
Makes sense.
We've got a number of clients.
Yeah, and so you're not saying that animal compost isn't any good or whatever. It's purely for the reasons you just stated, that you don't add it in. Correct.
We like animal compost, any kind of compost really. You have the sorry everybody, I'm actually at work and I'm the only one here.
I'll mute you if you want, or mute yourself.
Could you mute me, please?
Sure, mute it. Okay, guys, sorry about that. Fred's working, and yeah. But yeah, let us know if you're watching. Wally Kasab says no, he's not watching. Yeah, let us know. Give us some likes. Like I said, share this. Fred's got a lot to say about compost. and we'll help you with your gardens this year. Okay, you're unmuted there, Fred.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry about that, everybody. It's hopefully it won't get too many disturbances over the lunch hour here, even with our late start. But we didn't have any animal compost or any animal product compost, so we focused primarily on the plant-based. And like I said, we ended up creating quite a niche. We've got a number of our clients, as well as other lawn care providers, that use our organic soil amendments and fertilizer that are now dropping off their waste products. So we're controlling that stream fairly successfully. There's absolutely nothing wrong in my mind with animal-based products. The only thing I get concerned about is if you're composting like cow manure or horse manure or chicken manure. They get fed a lot of GMO products, as well as they also get a lot of medicines. So you never know what kind of products are in that you're trying to compost, and what that will have as effect on your final compost. We test ours twice a year, spring and fall. So we understand what kind of nutrient value it is, and then also what other kind of issues we may have. When you do an animal-based compost, you have to worry about such things as E. coli, and that. If you don't keep your piles processed in a certain way, those pathogens have a tendency to get out of control. If you do composting correctly, you can keep them under control or reduce them drastically so they don't pose an issue if you're adding them to your gardens or you're adding them as a compost tea.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of good info. I had no idea that E. coli could grow in the compost, but I guess it makes sense. It's a nice warm environment, and yeah. You
could even doing food scraps. Like cooked food scraps, cooked meat, animal fats, that sort of thing. Because of the way you compost them, they can become anaerobic. They don't, the piles don't heat up to the right temperature or for enough period of time, and it doesn't get rid of those pathogens. And you do want to heat your compost piles up substantially to that 40 to 60 degrees, plus 130 to 160 degrees, in order to eliminate such things as weed seeds. A lot of people say don't throw your weeds in with your compost pile, and that's primarily because people aren't allowing it to get up to temperature for a not long enough period of time, and a number of periods of times, in order to kill off those weed seeds and those other pathogens.
Oh, okay. So how do you get your compost up to that temperature? I imagine most people watching probably have their little compost bins, little compost turners. Me, I have big piles, kind of like you, probably not as big as yours. But what's the best way to get that heat up there?
Well, the best way is if you're composting. Let's say you're doing a backyard compost. I always recommend people do like the 3 bin stages, so that you've got a bin that you've started. You keep adding your compost to that until you've got it filled up, and then you move it, or you keep turning it on a regular basis. If you've got, you can go to Lee Valley. You can buy a temperature probe for compost. They're not overly expensive, so that you can probe it, keep it wet, and keep it aerated. That gets your temperature up. It's that decomposition, the adding of the microbiology and other microscopic and even some bugs that actually start ripping and tearing and decomposing that compost and getting that temperature up. So that activity of the biology, as they go through their life cycle, raises the heat, causes different fungi and bacteria to come in. Got to make sure it stays moist. You want to keep it at that 50% roughly, no higher than 60% moisture content. Otherwise, you're going to get leachate. Leachate's not great. You don't want to use the leachate or water runoff directly into your plants. That'll burn them or cause a high carbon level. Even just putting your hand in, if you don't have a temperature probe, put your hand in and see how wet it is or how hot it gets. If it gets to the point where it almost feels like it's boiling, leave it like that for a day and then turn that compost. Keep it aerated. You're going to have to do that and get it up to that 130, 160 degrees, 50 degrees, at least 3 times in the very early cycle of composting to get rid of those pathogens and to get rid of those weed seeds. I monitor my compost piles fairly regularly. I'm out there every day or every other day, just having a look at them, watching the steam, because I kind of like that. And then turning and adding that air. If your backyard compost pile starts to smell, that ammonia smell or that bad smell, that's telling you that it's starting to turn a little anaerobic. You're getting some bad activity in there. You've got it too wet. So you got to turn it, get that air in there and allow it to break down. And that will bring the temperature down. And then it'll start to build back up again. And that'll actually decrease the amount of time for that decomposition to happen.
So turning more often than not is important by the sounds of it, right?
Keeping the air flow in. Okay. If you're using your kitchen scraps, your grass clippings, your browns, your leaves, so it's greens and browns that you want to kind of have that ratio of, in order to ensure the greens are what heats up. The browns take a longer time to decompose. So if your compost pile, and have you lost me now?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. I went to a spinning wheel on my screen here. That keeping it oxygenated and keeping it just wet enough at that 50% will help keep the smell down and keep everything composting in a nice steady manner. Now, I talked about having 3 bins. Yeah. When that first bin starts to get heated up, we've heated it up now twice or 3 times, flip the whole thing over into the middle bin and start your a new compost bin in the first one. And then by the time the second bin has been composted, maybe by the end of the summer or whatever, move it over into the third bin, and then your first bin into your second bin. Now, by the time you get to that third bin, that next spring, that's compost is ready for on your garden.
Right.
Okay, it's already broken down.
How do you tell if it's ready? What does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like?
It looks like dark, rich soil. Okay, topsoil. It doesn't look anything like the veggies or the garden waste you put into it. By the time you put it into your second bin, it's starting already to break down. It's starting to get what looks like soil. You're going to get in that second stage. It's finished, or in that second bin, it's already finished getting the compost really superheated. So now you're going to start getting worms and other bugs in there, and the biology is going to change. You're going to get different types of biology. You're going to go from a biological to a more of a fungal type biology within there as it breaks down at different stages. In order to kind of jumping all over here, because I don't have a screen to follow, but wood chips. Natural wood chips, always good for aeration, always good because it adds fungal bacteria into the compost pile, which is what you want. You want to have a compost pile that is producing more fungal activity than biological activity. Okay. If you look at the natural old growth forests, they're very high in fungal, almost 1,000 to 1. Or more. You want to get towards that, because if you go into an old growth forest, you don't see dandelions growing on the ground. You don't see weeds, okay? Because weeds like unhealthy, salty, compacted soil. So as your compost moves to the more fungal type, you can take that and add it to your gardens or add it as a top dressing on your lawn, and that will actually feed your lawn probably for the entire season.
Wow.
It's just a single, very light top dressing. Once or twice a year is all you need for nutrients on your lawn, and you'll start to see worms coming back in your lawns, robins, blue jays, butterflies, all because you've stopped using chemicals and or the salt-based fertilizers.
No,
Something that you're working towards, Ricky.
Yeah, definitely. We do a lot of fertilizing every spring, and actually generally twice a year for most of our clients. We use a slow release fertilizer, but more and more I'm hoping to get into the organic, making my own compost here, and I might have to buy some off you till I get it down pat. But in the middle of getting screeners built right now by the same guy that built yours, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned worms. We do a lot of landscaping and lawn care work in Pinawa, and Pinawa has that opposite issue. They have too many worms. The earthworms in most of the yards in Pinawa have completely taken over, and their lawns are so rough from all the earthworms. So I don't know what we could do about that. Maybe some more salt.
Actually, what those worms are, crawlers.
Night crawlers, yeah.
Those are night crawlers, and what they do is then they burrow up and they leave their droppings close to the top, and then you get that very rough lawn that you feel like I got to go out there and pack it all down. Yeah. What we'll talk later on how you can get rid of those without using a salt-based fertilizer.
That would be great. If we could talk about that, I'm sure you'd make a lot of my clients very happy. No, that'd be good. Well, yeah, carry on. Like I was viewing some of your Instagram pictures today, and seeing you spraying down your compost piles. And I've not taken a course, but I watched a long video of a course that I could take, which would cost me a heck of a lot of money. And we talked about that briefly, but they talked about watering their compost and stuff. And I think most of us don't realize actually how much work goes into creating a good organic weed-free compost. So it's good that you're sharing this stuff. And
water is very important. Keeping it moist. The biology lives in a very thin layer of water around the individual pieces of soil and individual pieces of compost. And if they dry out and get really dry, then that biology dies and or goes dormant. So you want to keep that water or that compost damp. And the more surface area that you can create by having chunks of wood or larger chunks of plant material, the more biology and the more surface area you'll have, and it'll start to break down brown quicker.
Right. That's excellent information. Like I said, I think most people watching are probably on the smaller, or maybe have never composted before, have the one bin. So that 3-bin system makes a lot of sense. And yeah, it requires work, moving the compost, turning the compost, wetting the compost if it dries out too much. So
it does.
Yeah.
It does require a fair amount of work. I'm sorry, I talked over you.
No, I was just going to say, if you haven't started watching from the beginning, or if you miss some, you'll be able to watch the replay later. But yeah, Fred talks about using 3 different bins and stuff. So sorry, go ahead, Fred.
I just found in dealing with people that their main complaint is, I've got this bin that I got from the city, or I've got this turner, and my compost just doesn't compost. I keep throwing more feedstock in, being my kitchen scraps or whatever, and I never can get a finished product of it. That's why I always recommend the 3 or 4 stage system made out of pallets or chicken wire or whatever, because then you don't, I don't want to use the word contaminate, but you don't go from an almost finished compost and then start adding new green material to it. You want to give it an opportunity to finish off so you can harvest it at the end.
Right.
And I've always found those ones that are kind of cone shaped or whatever that the city was giving away there, or you can buy at the local store. You open up the slat and you try and dig a few things or a few shovelfuls out of the bottom, and then it just all collapses down, and you've got uncomposted again. Now you got to try and figure out how you're going to screen it. So it just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I hear you. So what do you think the best type of composter is? Build your own, or what do you think?
Yeah, I prefer building my own. I've used everything from tumblers to the bin system. Some of my kids are using the bin system, and getting good compost out of it. The turners, again, you got to turn them on a regular basis. I never had great success because they're all closed in, and you need that moisture, right? So I find it easier that with the bin system or the 3-stage system, they get the rainwater. I can quickly go out there and do a variety of different things. So,
right. So there you guys go. Build your own bin and move the compost as it fills up. So I would guess probably don't build them too big. It just depends on how much waste you have. If you're putting all your grass clippings in there, it does tend to fill up pretty quick. But those also disappear pretty quick, I find too. So those compost nice.
Yep, for sure.
So I like what you said about wood chips too. So does it matter if it's hardwood, softwood? Like, should you be avoiding spruce because of the acidity, or pretty much any wood chips?
Pretty much any wood chips whatsoever. We use spruce. I've got a couple of arborists that will drop off some wood chips. I'll actually go down to the if I run low, I'll go to the local composting site in our municipality, and I'll actually get composted wood chips that are already broken down.
Yeah,
because that's already got the fungal material to it. You can dig into that pile and see this white layer, and that's actually a fungus that is breaking down that wood. So I grab as much of that as I can and bring it back to my pile. Like you, being in the country, I keep my piles close to. Whoops. I got a guy starting an engine. Close to the tree line and close to the little brush that I have, because then I get some local biology that migrates in, and the local worms and fungus start to migrate into my finished compost, which just enhances it.
Nice. Man, lots of good info. I'm excited to actually get out there and start turning my piles again. We had that bit of snow earlier on in the fall, and then it got warm again, so I fired up the skid steer and went and turned stuff and got to see the steam. I'm like you, when that steam is rising, I enjoy watching that. I guess that makes us weird. Does anybody else enjoy watching steam on their compost piles?
It gives me a great satisfaction to know that steam is actually doing something good. Okay, it's making compost. It's sequestering carbon. It's helping the planet, as well as helping us in our industry and our clients. Create something that's good for their garden. It's nothing like using a good quality compost, very nutrient rich compost. And Keith, I know when you start getting to the point where you're screening your compost, getting it tested for that nutrient value and get organic values and your salt contents, because without that, customers are just they don't know what they're getting. And if they go to the local store and buy a bag of compost, it's basically dead, because they have to treat it in order to sell it in the stores. So ours, at least, it's called living soil.
Yes. Well, and so I was going to ask you about that too. Exactly. Buying compost in bags. It's in a bag. It's not getting any air. It's like vacuum seal close. That's what I was going to ask. Is it pretty much not dead? Like lost a lot of its nutrient value?
The nutrient value is there. It's the biology that has died or gone dormant.
Okay.
If they have heat treated or chemically treated that compost in order to, as part of their bagging process, then yeah, it's all you're getting is a very small nutrient value. It's not like your compost or my compost that actually has live microbiology in it, which as it continues to go through its life cycle, it continues to produce nutrients. It continues, as you put it onto your gardens, create a symbiotic relationship with the plant. Because what happens is the plant tells the biology what kind of nutrients it needs, and the biology actually goes and produces that,
Right.
and brings it back to the plant, so that if it needs phosphorus, it goes out and gets the phosphorus. If it needs nitrogen, if it needs carbon, if it needs boron, the plant is actually communicating with the life in the soil and saying, this is what I need. So earlier I said that the biology changes within the compost. It actually changes by season or by type of plant in your own garden.
Wow.
I'm getting too heavy. Sorry.
No, that's impressive. That's news to me. You know, you just think hey, compost. Everybody says compost good, help your plants grow. Throw it on there and, you know, watch it work. But what you're talking about, like you said, it's deep. But I think people need to know stuff like this. It's how important it is. So
yeah, it's more than just throwing a bit of compost on your lawn, or a bit of topsoil on your lawn, because again, the topsoil isn't necessarily, it's stripped off the fields. You're getting more and more complaints or concerns about different types of weeds that are coming when you do top dressing, because it's being stripped off the fields, and 9 times out of 10, some of these places, their piles get pretty weedy, so they've got to control it somehow, using whatever methods, other than heat treating. They're spraying something on it.
Spraying, yeah. Yeah, and I guess the only way to keep the weeds out really is to continue to turn it, but that doesn't even seem to work, right? If you've got soil piles.
Yeah, turning your compost does keep, if I heard you right, the weeds in the compost pile?
Yeah, well, I was talking about more like a soil pile. Like if you're stripping it, like let's say a guy is stripping soil off the field and peat moss, if you keep turning it, it helps eliminate the weeds, but it doesn't get rid of them, right? Like,
no, it just knocks them down.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever done an experiment with a weed leaf or a weed root. You can cut that sucker in half, and now you've got 2 weeds growing. And if you cut that in half, so as long as you're cultivating and tilling and not getting that root and doing and composting it, you're just exasperating the issue.
Right.
We've
so
gone.
You need to compost your soil as well to kill weeds, right?
Yeah, you get the right biology in there. We produce different blends. We've got a good topsoil supplier that we will create soil blends with our compost in order to make it more affordable for people. And so we make a vegetable blend, we make a flower blend, we make a special blend for our wonderful cannabis growers. We also make a topsoil or a top dressing blend, which is different amounts of worm castings, topsoil, coca coir, and compost in it. So it's very nutrient rich. It's very, very much alive, and reasonable for people to, or people like us to put on their lawns, or people to buy to put on their own lawns or in their gardens. And it lasts for years. I've had people now that have made garden boxes and put in our compost and topsoil blends, and 10 years later they haven't added anything other than maybe a little bit more of our compost just at the top, because it is, as it continues to develop and mature, it does drop down a little bit. So you got to just keep kind of topping it up, but they haven't added anything other than water to their gardens, and they're producing huge amounts of flowers or veggies.
Wow. We could get into so much here. We could probably talk for hours and hours, and I know you're at work, so I don't want to keep you for hours and hours. But Chris Spicer says hi. You know Chris Spicer, right?
Yes. How you doing, Chris?
Good to see you.
Get your shop open, Chris. I need supplies.
Oh, yeah. That's right, because they moved. So Consolidated Turf has moved, right? Yes, Consolidated
Yeah,
Turf.
they're over on.
Been in a few places. Sometimes I forget where he is now.
He's closer to you now.
Is he? Oh, that's better, Chris. I like that. Did you do that just for me, buddy? Some of my complaints always, some of these places for me to go and pick up supplies, it's so far off the beaten path for me. Whereas like HJS wholesale is right there. I just come in on 15 or 59 and just take the perimeter, and it's right there. Oh, and my wife's in the background saying he's right there too.
So you can come to our yard, which is only 10 minutes away from HJS. So
perfect. I'm going to
run the race
spring. We talked. I think I talked about that this previous spring about, hey, once this COVID thing is over, we go for coffee and you can impart some knowledge to me. But COVID isn't over. It doesn't look like we're anywhere near over. So one of these days.
Nope. But we're like you, we're classified as an essential service. So and we're outdoors in our facility. So you're more than welcome to stop by and bring coffee.
Oh, hey, there we go. That's what I'll do. That's still cheap knowledge. I bring a lot of coffees. I was going to mention, since you mentioned garden boxes, and you can agree or disagree with me on this, but I see a lot of people last year, or this spring, this year still, man, did we build and install garden boxes for people, and soil too. I sold a small company like mine. I think I sold 150, 160 yards of topsoil and probably 30 or so of compost. But anyway, garden boxes. People that are building those, I see so many people using treated lumber to build their garden boxes because it lasts longer. And my opinion on that is stay away from, if you're growing veggies in there, if you're growing anything besides flowers, anything you're going to put in your mouth, don't use treated lumber. And I just think that the chemicals could leach into your soils, leach into your veggies, and now you're eating treatment, whatever that stuff is. It's not good for you. So what do you think about that?
I agree 120%. Yeah, build it under cedar or build it out of an untreated lumber. Line it with a landscaping cloth. My garden boxes are 10 plus years old, and they're still working just fine.
Yeah, and if
they will outlast me.
Yeah, right. And cedar is great. Cedar is expensive, but cedar is going to last years longer than probably anything else. But as they start to break down, I'm sure it's not a bad thing either. It's your wood's composting around your garden in a sense. So
they last, like I say, mine are 10 plus years old, and they're not showing any signs of rot. I lined the inside with landscape cloth just to hold the soil in, and not an issue.
Interesting. So yeah, I don't think I've lined, unless people have specifically asked. I haven't lined them with landscape cloth because I kind of find that the cloth can retain moisture as well, right? It gets wet and it can retain moisture. But either way, I don't think there's a right or wrong as long as your soil's not leaking out the gaps in your lumber or whatever.
Yeah, and that's what we primarily use it for. The bottoms are open. It's just the sides that we're lining, just to keep that soil from washing through the cracks.
Right. Yeah, I've had to educate some clients. They've got 1 or 2 foot deep garden boxes, and they want landscape cloth on the bottom. Sorry, Chris, I'm not selling as much landscape cloth as I should, but to prevent weeds from coming up. And I've told people, you're not going to get weeds from a foot down in the soil. This stuff is coming from the top of the soil, top few inches. So
that's right. Anyway,
I should stop talking. I'm interviewing you. You're educating us. So tell us about your compost tea. You make compost tea, right?
I do make compost tea. I don't make it as much as I used to. Only do it for a few clients. I might get back into it again, but I found a product with compost teas. In the business, when you're putting it on people's lawns as a soil amendment or in their gardens, in our summers it can get very hot, and my teas are sitting in a 250 gallon tank, and that's getting hot. It goes anaerobic very quickly, and anaerobic is when the oxygen gets used up and the biology starts to die. And as the good biology starts to die, the bad biology starts to take over. So that's not good for spraying.
Right.
So I end up losing a lot of product because you'd be out halfway through your day and it's 35 degrees out, and you look at the temperature inside the tank and it's 45 degrees, 55 degrees. So, and it starts to smell bad and people are complaining because we'll add fish as a nitrogen source.
Oh.
So unless I know I'm going to use it up right away, I'm not have to travel too far with it. I don't use it that much anymore. We've found some other products called Soil Perfect, which is a liquid a humic and flovic substance, along with some quantum growth microbiology that we now add to our tanks, and it stays stable. It doesn't. It's not affected by the heat, and it's not affected by the microbiology going crazy, because it's all good microbiology that the plants need. So we use that now. I can make a tank, and if it's 3/4 empty, I can save it till the next day and finish up.
Okay.
Spraying or add to it. So the compost teas we use primarily on lawns, shrubs, that sort of thing. A lot of our micro grow cannabis growers use it because it's a little easier to use. A lot of people think the compost teas are always good. To me, they are good, but you got to watch what kind of biology. You got to know what your biology is within your compost, because you don't want to create a tea of bad biology.
Okay. Makes sense. Michelle just said she's kicking herself for not making a cold grow box. This would have been the year for it. What's a cold grow box? Any idea, Fred?
I believe that's like a cold frame. If that's what she's talking about. So take a frame that you've got a glass window on top that starting to retain the heat. Wow. If that's what she's talking about, a lot of root vegetables, that sort of thing. Okay. I've never had success with those here. I've always find we get just too darn cold. It does extend the growing season somewhat, and you can start it up earlier.
Yeah, I guess similar to a greenhouse, right? It just helps retain some of that heat and reflects the sun, gets the sun in there. So yeah, we use some grow lamps. Like I posted on Instagram this morning, my son got up. He was up with me at 7:30, and he's like, "Oh, I want to grow stuff." So he goes and finds some seeds. I'm like, "Well, don't grow vegetables because it's far too early." So he found some flower seeds, and he's got some flower seeds on the go. So it's nice to see kids excited about this. I wish they would teach more of this in school.
I totally agree. Actually, we've started some vegetables already down in the basement under some grow lights. We've got some kohlrabi and some celery, a couple of other things already growing down in the basement in our new compost potting soil that we created. Just giving it a shot and a try.
All right.
Excuse me just a second.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm good.
You good? So you mentioned before worm castings. Now I'm sure some people heard that and said, "What the heck is this guy talking about?" So tell us about worm castings.
Worm castings are vermicompost. That's the droppings from the worms. As it goes through, they go through and eat the plant material or eat the different biology within the soils. They create excrement, and that is extremely, extremely nutrient rich and great to add as a top dressing on your house plants, as a top dressing to your garden. We create it ourselves. I do have a little bit of a vermicomposting operation. We inoculate our piles with worms. My grandkids, in the fall, as we're screening our compost, will go into the screening piles and start. After I do a bucket, they'll crawl underneath there and into the screening piles and harvest the worms for their worm composting, and then we put some that we overwinter so we can inoculate again come springtime. Wow. So very, very good stuff to get a hold of. Yeah.
Overwintering worm. My wife's in the background saying overwintering worms.
Actually, my grandkids had, they came and one of them took the worms and we put them in a container. He took them home and, what do you call it? One of those Tupperware type containers or tubs, and started asking his mom or taking the kitchen scraps, and he was feeding his worms. She didn't realize he had the worm bin under his bed for most of the winter. She goes, "Well, it doesn't smell." I says, "No, it won't smell as long as he keeps feeding them. It won't smell."
Wow, yeah, I my son's not in here listening, fortunately. Otherwise, there'd be worms under his bed.
Yeah, Mom knows nowhere to look now.
Right. So I'm assuming those aren't night crawlers then? What type of worms are they?
Actually, they're a combination of night crawlers, red wigglers, and earthworms.
Oh, okay. Good.
Night crawlers are very voracious. They eat a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, the yards in Pinawa that are full of them, it's like we'll sometimes roll the lawn for people in the spring just to smooth it out. They ask us to do it, so we bring our lawn roller, but it's in no time they're back to being a bumpy lawn again. So
yeah, we'll talk, and I can give you some ideas on how to address those issues for your clients.
Yeah, that'd be good. So where do you get worms from? So where does a person who's got some decent sized compost bins go and find some worms? Wait till they're ready.
Well,
they pop up, or
well, go to Pinawa. Actually, there's a couple of people in Winnipeg. If you look on Kijiji, they're selling worms.
Okay.
There's a gentleman in Steinbach that sells worms. There's a lady that I get my worms from. Nature's Perfect Plant Food. She does animal manure composting via worms. Yeah. She's got a program set up with a number of cattle farmers where they set up an opportunity for them to compost. I'm gonna have to get you to mute me for a second. I gotta disappear. Yeah. Somebody coming to the door. Okay.
So I hope you guys are all finding this interesting. I'm getting some good comments here, and yeah, it's man, I'm learning a lot, and like I said, excited to start turning my compost piles again this spring. So if anybody in our area, and I'll have to talk to a couple other lawn care companies around here, like Jeff and Debbie from Green Oak, if you guys want to dump your clippings here, by all means, you're welcome to dump your clippings here, because we only get so many. So yeah. And Fred, you take clippings from all kinds of lawn companies and stuff, right? Like I've noticed Leaf Landscaping brings you stuff, and
I do take from Leaf. The people that I do take from, I make sure they're not spraying any kind of weed control. Right. And they most of them are using our soil amendments or our fertilizers, so I know that that's good. I'm not going to end up with an issue, because to me it's key that our clients are getting a quality compost and they don't have to worry about any kind of chemical issues after the fact.
There's Debbie Cohen. They own Green Oak Lawn Care just down the road from me. So yeah, she says they got a pile. I'll have to go and grab it in the spring.
Yeah, Debbie, just load it up and bring it to my place. I appreciate it.
Okay, I'm removing her name so you can't find her. Yeah, it's amazing how stuff like I posted some pictures of my compost piles this spring, and Fred goes, "Whoa, you don't need to be composting this stuff for years. You could have compost in a year." So I'm like, okay, you got to tell me more, man. And I think the key is really moving your piles a lot and not having the piles too big, I guess, or like too high.
Yeah, if you're in a small operation like you or I, and you want to keep that compost moving, then you keep it in smaller piles. I try and keep mine in piles that are 6 feet tall, at whatever length that turns out to be. And you got to remember that you may start off with a huge pile of leaves and grass, but that's going to reduce by 50%, if not more. So yeah, we always kind of go on a 40 to 55% volume at the end of it. So when we finish our season up, of straight compost, we're probably looking at about 100 to 150 yards produced every year. So it's not a lot.
No.
And it takes that full 12 plus months to produce a finished product, and then some of that has to go back into the piles to compost even more.
Right. I find with my piles, like when I first started collecting my grass clippings 9+ years ago now. Well, I guess it wasn't that long, probably 6+ years ago when we started doing lawn care. Would throw sticks and branches and stuff in there thinking, oh yeah, this will compost quick too. And that seems to be slowing my piles down a lot, is those sticks and branches. So I'm looking forward to that screener.
Yeah, actually the sticks, they do slow down, but they also add that oxygen. It gives place for the oxygen to stay within your pile. It also gives a place or a gap for moisture.
Right.
So if you chip those up somewhat, get them into a smaller, more easily dealt with, then they will help your piles produce quicker.
Right. Okay.
But I end up with the same thing. You end up with. I beg your pardon?
So don't remove all the sticks right away then.
Not all the sticks, no. We make sure we do put some sticks in ours of a variety of different sizes, in order to keep that volume of air and biology. Because you got to remember, like I said earlier, that film of water that forms around your plants, that's where the biology is living. So
right. Well, were you at the Grow 20 show? Because it was just before the whole COVID thing in February. Did you listen to Sean James's presentation?
Unfortunately, on which?
I think it was like on water gardens.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to his presentation. I was not presenting. I was hosting one at the time. So
yeah, it was good. And he talked a bit about that, about like just in your yard itself, keeping piles, like little piles of wood for them to rot and decay, for all the little critters that make use of that. We're in such a society where everything has to be so neat and prim and proper. And hey, I sell lawn care, so I like making properties neat and nice lines and prim and proper. But I also love to see edible landscapes. And we just started a course yesterday. There's a guy from Winnipeg, I forget his name, that he's offering a free course. I'm assuming he got a good grant from the government, and all about edible landscapes and designing them. And it's like, wow, this is stuff that I like and just want to know more.
I know the gentleman you're talking about. He's my daughter and wife are taking that course as well. Unfortunately, I'm here and can't take it.
I like this off season. I don't do snow clearing, so I get a chance to do stuff like that and stuff like what we're doing today. And it doesn't pay the bills, but I don't know. If I can educate others and educate myself, to me, it's worth it, and it'll pay off in the long run, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure.
So what else you want to talk about, Fred?
Gosh, I don't know. If anybody in the Winnipeg area, we have compost in bags. We have it in bulk. We have new potting mixes we're going to be selling come this spring or even this fall. I'm just trying to get some bags to start bagging some of this stuff up. I do have 30-liter bags of both veggie and flour mix available. People can sign on to our website at www.sustainableorganicsolutions.ca. Post questions there. We will be having a couple of different composting PowerPoint presentations that we'll be posting up on there just for home composting that people can look at. Or if they've got any specific questions with regards to composting or yard care, that sort of thing, we're always willing to help. Or if they have questions about some of the other products that we sell, whether it be the Humix or Flovix, liquid or granular, that they can add to their lawns. Or they can see Keith, because he'll be carrying it this spring.
Well, I was going to say, here first, is it organics with an S?
Yes.
Organic.
So organic solutions. It's organic.
Okay.
Sustainable organic solutions.
Okay, I put it in the chat so people hopefully can click on it and go to your website. Yeah, I was going to say, if you're from around here, don't feel bad if you go see Fred. Fred is light years ahead of me on knowledge in this stuff, and he's got compost ready. Whereas my compost piles are getting pretty small, and I'm still learning. But and I definitely don't have anything bagged yet, but it's definitely somewhere I want to be. So yeah, check out his website. He's also on Instagram. You can follow him there. He's always posting good pictures, spraying down the compost and stuff. So,
or the grandkids spraying down it. The nice thing about composting is it gets the entire family, or you can get the entire family involved. So.
Well, it's funny you say that because I didn't have a screener, so I've got sticks. There's some bale twine, different, and my guys will bring home grass clippings, and sometimes they throw their Dr. Pepper, bottle in there or whatever. So it's like I'll go in. Oh, go ahead. So I'll go and be loading up a load of compost. It's like, hey, kids, get in the trailer, and I'll sprinkle a load out, throw all the sticks and the twine and the plastic out. So they get involved too, but the screener is gonna, no more slave labor.
The screener will definitely help, and you'll always use slave labor.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, at least they go and help in the garden, right?
Yeah, I'd love to continue on, but I've got some customers up at the door. Definitely would be willing to do this again, Keith.
Yeah, let's figure out. I appreciate the invite. And let's get together in the spring, and then you'll have to message me on how to take care of those earthworms.
For sure.
Okay,
thanks everybody. I appreciate the time.
Take care. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. I hope you learned a ton of stuff out of there. I know I sure did. So yeah, if you've got any questions, feel free. Like I said, go to his website, Instagram, message me. I can get a hold of him as well. And don't be scared to ask. Like 2020 really awakened people to growing and just supplying their own food, right? And if we spent more time in our yards, I'm knocking myself out of business here in some senses, but spent more times in our yards, not maybe having this beautiful manicured lawn, but at least take a space of it. Take a, even if you're in town, go in your backyard. Now I know Pinawa has such an issue with deer. Next interview, Colleen's my cousin, and yeah, she knows some stuff too. No kidding. She went to Israel and learned. Well, I should interview Colleen. I don't even know where to start. But anyway, so many deer in Pinawa, and it's you can't have any plants. They eat everything. I've seen them. I've seen a deer in Pinawa eat a plastic, like a fake Christmas tree once. It was absolutely insane. I couldn't believe it. I had to rub my eyes and smack myself in the face. And no, this deer, middle of winter, was eating, well, probably this time of year, somebody put out their plastic Christmas tree and it was eating it. But anyway, where I was going with this was, sure would be nice if pretty much everybody would just take a small space in their yard and just make it an edible landscape. And I think part of, we hear this or we see this and we just think this weed infested, overgrown area, but it definitely doesn't need to be that. And now, of course, it takes work. So does mowing your lawn. This is going to take more work, and it takes time for plants to mature. But with fruit trees and berries and just growing your own veggies and stuff, it's totally worth it. And hey, if you love the idea but have no desire to do the work, hire us. We'll come and we'll plant it, and we can maintain it for you as well. We can come and weed your gardens, but I just need a lot of people that want to do it so I can have a crew specifically for that. And I understand people are busy and both members of the family out working and stuff like that. So if it's something you want to do and you don't have the time, but you got the money, let us know. We can help you design it. We can help you install it, and we can help you maintain it if you want. And potentially we can help you eat the fruit too if you really want. So anyway, like I said, any questions or anything, feel free to message me. Thanks so much for watching. enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and yeah, take care.